cloud schools. So to our event today, I highly request everyone to please stand up
online that were attended by people who are competing this afternoon. And that was, I think that started in September. And I'm not sure whether it will continue beyond today. There will be, okay, so it's not finished. The series is not finished. Okay, in the original design, this was supposed to conclude everything, but then it changed the sequence in the original design. I hope that for those of you in particular who joined that lecture series, this is something we look forward to because it's an actual practice, so to speak, or actual event that we will where you will see in action some of the things that we will talk about during the lecture. So finally, I want to give a special and Mr. Jeffrey Abarot. Hi, sir. Oh, mukha ka lang estudyante, sir. And Mr. Brian Siegelwax, who is also joining us online. So thank you to the speakers. Thank you to the team or behind this event. I hope and I'm sure you will have a very interesting day and you will learn a lot. Welcome again to UP Tacloban College. Okay, adlaw. And you will learn a lot. Welcome again to UP Tacloban College. Okay, adlaw.
Thank you, Dr. Rito, for that very, very warm welcome. We got a sneak peek of our speakers for today, as well as a look at the demographics of all of our participants. So you can see that majority of everyone here are students. So I think what is that department? Students of the com- computer science and mathematics. I've applied math. All right. Now, to continue with our program, I would like to call on Associate Professor Dolan M. De Jesus, the Director of Marketing and Relations of UCSB, to introduce our first esteemed speaker.
Good morning, everyone. It is a great honor to introduce our first resource speaker. Dr. Donna Dadson is highly respected cybersecurity expert who has made significant contributions throughout her career, particularly during her time at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, where she served as the head of cybersecurity program and the inaugural director of the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Joining NIST in 1987, Dr. Dadson was instrumental in the development of the cybersecurity framework, which has become a cornerstone of managing cybersecurity across various industries. She earned she work has earned her numerous prestigious awards, including the Service to America Medal, the Distinguished Presidential Rank Award, and recognition as a Fed 100 winner for her innovations in cybersecurity. In 2020, IBM named her one of the top 10 women in AI, further highlighting her leadership in the field. Now serving as a cybersecurity technologies advisor at Evolution Q. Dr. Dadson continues to implement cybersecurity initiatives, advising on information security practices across sectors globally. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Dr. Donna Dadson.
Thank you very much for that very warm welcome. Can everybody hear me okay? Very much for that very warm welcome. Very good. I'm going to share my screen. So let's see. It's telling me that I cannot share my screen yet. So I'm going to need some help from the front so that we can put my slides up. Or you all can put them up. I so that we can put my slides up. Let's see. And we'll get started on, I'd like to talk to you today about quantum cryptography. Let's see, can I share now? Let's see, can I share now? Okay, to entire screen. Let's see, just a minute and I'll get that started. Let's see, just a minute and I'll get. And if you'll bear with me just a second. Okay, so are my slides up on the screen? Yes, thank you. I appreciate the front row. Thank you very much. So today I'd like to speak with you all about preparing for the quantum age, ensuring your quantum safe cryptographic framework. Quantum is a paradigm shift in everything that we are doing today. We hear a lot of conversation around artificial intelligence and some conversations around quantum computing, but it is a little bit of a sleeping giant. However, we're going to see great positive shifts in many areas like materials and pharmaceutical design, in many areas of optimization, sensing and measurements. So there'll be a lot of new innovations that come out based on quantum computing. It won't replace all of the desktops and laptops and classical computing that we have today, but there are some areas where we will see great differences. And it also changes everything in the way we look at cryptography. It is a big game changer in cryptography. So we also need to prepare for the threat of quantum computing. It is a new paradigm shift. And part of this is because as we move to quantum computing, we see the changes that in classical computing, we have the number of bits and possible configurations with one bit is 2, but the number of bits and possible configurations in quantum computing is very different. So when we think about cryptography and we think about key sizes and say the number of bits of 2 to the 10 and we get 10 to the 24, 10 key size of 10 24-bit keys, we think that that's very difficult to compute all of those possibilities and all of those keys in classical computing, but that's not the same kind of challenges when we get to quantum computing. Given that kind of change that we're seeing, we have to prepare for this new paradigm shift. So, as we are preparing for that shift, I'm going to see if I can move this over just a little bit. We are seeing, let me go back. I think somehow or another I've lost a slide. Guess not. As we are preparing for this new paradigm shift in the development of quantum computers, lots of people want to understand, well, when will we actually see a quantum computer? When will they actually occur? When will we actually have one? And that's more challenging to predict. We don't know exactly when we will have a cryptographically relevant quantum computer. However, we are seeing improvements not just in the number of bits of qubits um, that are out there, but we are also seeing that these qubits are becoming more accurate. So there are a number of parameters that we have to keep an eye on when we think about where are quantum computers today and where they need to be cryptographically relevant. This ends up being very important when these predictions are coming about. However, many people believe that within the next 10 years, there's a high probability that we will have a cryptographically relevant quantum computer. Therefore, it's very important that we start preparing today for that time. Um, IBM, for example, and this is just one example, is on track to achieve a quantum advantage by 2026 um, to deal with some of the error mitigation that has to occur to create cryptographically relevant quantum computer. Google is making a lot of progress. Microsoft is making a lot of progress. In addition to that, some of the smaller companies are creating a lot of the components necessary to have fault-tolerant quantum computers. So we're seeing a lot of advancements in this space, and they're actually coming faster than some people had predicted even 10 years ago. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes because that is very important. So what does this mean for cryptography? Well, two people took a look at this issue back in the 1980s. Grover took a look at it and said, you need, took a look at it and said, for symmetric key cryptography, for things like the advanced encryption standard and for bulk encryption, where mathematically the algorithm will continue to hold up, but what you would want to be able to do with a quantum computer is just to try to be able to create a model that will look at all of the key space that's out there and to be able to create all of the keys necessary to decrypt a message. So to be able to generate all of the 256-bit keys. And the determination had been made that it was really necessary to move from AES 128-bit keys to AES 256-bit keys, and you would be safe for cryptographically relevant quantum computers. So Grover showed that in fact you could have downstream some issues with symmetric key cryptography, and you did need to worry about that, but the solution set was to generate and use a larger key size. So you don't have to make a lot of changes in your infrastructure, but you do have some performance issues that may occur. However, with issues like RSA and elliptic curve cryptography or asymmetric key cryptography, now Shor showed that in fact they would be completely broken. And RSA and elliptic curve cryptography, just like AES, are used throughout our infrastructure today. They are used throughout our digital infrastructure to protect all sorts of applications. They are in our laptops, they're part of our phones, they're part of our banking applications, they're part of our healthcare applications, they're part of TLS. So communications between our servers and our laptops when we log into, say, a website and we make a payment or we look at private information, all of these places are relying on asymmetric key cryptography or public key cryptography, and Shor demonstrated how cryptographically relevant quantum computers would break these algorithms. This is a very big deal. So, as I just noted, the quantum paradigm, breaking today's public key cryptography, factoring large numbers, finding discrete logs is easy with a quantum computer, very challenging with a classical computer. So we are going to need to make some changes in our infrastructure. This has a widespread impact on all that we do across our infrastructure. And it is very challenging to make the kinds of changes that we need to make in our infrastructure to remove and to update algorithms like RSA, DSA, Diffie-Hellman, elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman, elliptic curve digital signature algorithm. So again, things like AES, we can work with that, but the asymmetric key or the public key algorithms, much more challenging. And again, this just shows the timeline for cryptographically relevant quantum computers, and this timeline is actually shortening as to when they'll be ready. But we have another issue that we have to contend with here and now. And it's called the Mosca inequality. Mikhail Mosca recognized that the time data needs to be secure, that's X years, and the time to migrate your infrastructure to be secure against quantum computers, and the time for a quantum computer threat is Z. So you've got X, Y, and zeta. So if your migration time and the time that you need the data to be secure is greater than the time we expect until there is a quantum computer, it means you need to get started now. So bad actors can do something with what's called harvest now. They can actually take encrypted data today, hold on to it, and decrypt it later when there is an available quantum computer. And sensitive information that needs to stay sensitive for a long period of time is susceptible to this kind of an attack, a harvest now, decrypt later sort of an attack. So it means that organizations need to start this sort of migration now. And if they, the migrations are challenging and take time. So organizations really need to have a strong data management program to understand the data that they need to protect and how long they need to protect that data. Now, once I understand that I need to protect this data, how am I going to protect it? Because I've said things like RSA and ECDSA public key cryptography is not going to work. Well, there are some classes of mathematics, post-quantum cryptography, that have been reviewed and are believed to be secure against quantum computers. Isogenies, multivariant, lattice. These kinds of mathematics have shown that they can hold up against quantum computers. So NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, started a competition about 8 years ago to invite cryptographers or organizations around the world to submit algorithms that could be used to replace RSA and elliptic curve cryptography, asymmetric key algorithms, so public key algorithms that could be used to replace what we have in classical algorithms that we have today. And they would be studied by cryptographers and engineers from around the world, and they would be selected as replacement algorithms for what's in so many of our systems today. So it took about 8 years, but the first 3 algorithms have been selected and are now standards and are available to begin that quantum readiness journey. They've been selected by NIST and they've been reviewed by the cryptographic community. So there's been a lot of analysis that's been done on them. The algorithms, I think there were over 80 that were submitted from around the world. The algorithms that came in and have been selected must be used by the U.S. federal government to protect non-national security systems when you need a public key algorithm. And they've also been selected for use. There are a lot of organizations like financial systems. Other national governments are taking a look at these algorithms and saying, yes, we're going to use them in our requirements. The National Security Agency, NSA, will be using those to protect up to top secret information. There is also a related conformity assessment program. Have you implemented the algorithm correctly? And then the module surrounding that does it have the right kinds of controls around it? That conformity assessment program is in place. You can actually test for correctness of the implementations of the algorithms today. The modules are just coming out now because the selection for the standards just came out in August of this year, so they haven't been out all that long. But putting these new algorithms in place is not all that easy because they don't have the same key sizes. The data that they operate on is not quite the same length. The results are not quite the same lengths as with RSA and ECDSA. So it's not a drop-in replacement. But the standards communities are beginning to take these foundational algorithms and put them in different protocols. That work is starting to come out. The US government has mandated that US federal agencies should transition to these new algorithms and have them in place no later than 2035. So it means that starting now, they need to start those replacements and they need to have it done by 2035. There is some discussions that that's too long of a window, that they need to move faster because of the concern of a relevant quantum computer. So they are moving quickly, and you can see this in some of the documentations that the government has put out about vulnerable cryptographic systems. And I'll make these slides available so you all can have copies of them in case you're interested in the direction that the US government is going. Other national governments are also requiring their agencies to become to move toward to address the quantum threat with their cryptographic algorithms. The government of Germany has put guidelines out. The government of Canada has put some guidelines out. Great Britain has put guidelines out, etc. So we have foundational algorithms. We need to get key management solutions out. Our PKI needs to change. We have protocols. We have testing and certification that needs to be done at all of these levels. There's a lot of remaining work to be done. And then we need to understand how quantum technology can support a stronger cybersecurity posture. How can we take advantage of quantum computers and get randomness? How can we look at quantum key distribution and quantum delivery networks and put those in place so that we have a resilient infrastructure for the future? Because we're making major changes to our cryptographic infrastructure from the business side all the way down to the technology, because we rely on cryptography to bring trust and confidence to our businesses, to our governments, to our academic institutions. We rely on cryptography to provide confidentiality and integrity for our information, our digital information. It's a major pillar in cybersecurity. So as we are doing this and we are changing our cryptographic infrastructure, we must have that resiliency for the future. We rely on that digital infrastructure more and more every day. We rely on cryptography for our information more and more, and we want to have a resilient cryptographic infrastructure. So lots of work to be done. How can we take advantage of things like quantum key distribution? How do we start preparing? How do we get from what we have in place today to where we want to be tomorrow? And how do we prepare for that quantum readiness? So establishing a team, getting started now is really, really critical. Engaging with your supply chain is very critical. Starting to test is critical. Thinking about your business applications and where you're using cryptography and how you're using cryptography. Again, all are critical activities. Um, again, all are critical activities. Creating a risk assessment, a quantum that's really focused on quantum to understand where you're using it, how you're how where your data is, how long it needs to be there, how long it needs to be secure, marrying that up with an inventory of where your cryptography is and how you're using that cryptography is are some of the very first steps in understanding that and creating that roadmap and that timeline so that you can prepare for your quantum safe journey. And creating that cryptographic infrastructure so that you have defense in depth and you're using layers of protection for your data, that you're thinking about agility with different algorithms and different key management approaches, and that you have testing and evaluation for your advanced technologies, all give you a defense in depth and a resilient approach. And I know I've gone very quickly through a lot of discussions about quantum and the quantum threat. I think the biggest key here is really for all of us to think to ourselves, this is a real threat and we need to be prepared. We need to start working today. Um, Quantum computers bring us lots of advantages, but not with our cryptographic infrastructure. With our cryptographic infrastructure, we need to prepare. We need to have a resilient cryptographic infrastructure, and the time to start is now. And with that, I think I have a little bit of time for questions. And with that, I think I have a little bit of time for questions. And with that, I think I have a little bit of time for questions.
Uh,
I can't hear the questions.
Quantum risks.
Nah,
We would now like to open
I can't hear the
for
questions.
questions from our audience.
Nah.
If anyone has a question, I believe we have microphones at every other table. So you could just take a mic and ask a question. I have a third one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I have a lot of things to do. Thank you for giving us sorry. Yeah, so my question is if suddenly the fault tolerant quantum computer suddenly appeared right now, so would you say that even the US will be vulnerable because they have not, you have not migrated yet to the post-quantum cryptography algorithms? And that's one question. The next question is, I remember before the year 2000, there was a big anticipation about Y2K. So would you say that this is even much more serious than the Y2K problem?
So, so the first question, if I heard it correctly, was in the U.S. have have organizations started to migrate to post quantum? Was that the question?
Um, yeah, the question is, yeah, it's actually something along that line. I was asking if suddenly the quantum computer appeared, it
Ah,
can be USA. So even the US will be vulnerable vulnerable at this time?
So the U.S. would be vulnerable if a quantum computer appeared, and so is this a bigger threat than Y2K? So if you think about bad actors, um, we may know when a quantum computer is available, and we may not know when a quantum computer is available. There could be bad actors who create a quantum computer who do not raise their hand and say, 2000, the calendar has now flipped to 2000, and you know it happened, right? So a bad actor may not be willing to raise their hand and say, guess what I have back in my, guess what I now have created? I now have a quantum computer. So we don't know exactly when that may happen. Um, and organizations would be in the US would be vulnerable if there were a quantum computer. Um, it takes time to make these kinds of cryptographic changes. When, as one of the first steps, is doing that inventory about where organizations are using cryptography, and many organizations who have started on this path have been surprised to find that they're using old protocols that are not very secure, that don't have the security that they thought they were using to protect certain kinds of data when they really start looking at this. So they are finding some risks that they've had that they didn't know that they had as they started down this path. Because how many organizations stop and look at their cryptography in this kind of very detailed way? So organizations are uncovering many kinds of things when they're doing this. And it's both the quantum threats as well as some of the classical threats. Because remember, when this cryptographic infrastructure is being updated, it needs to be secure against quantum computers, but it also needs to be secure against classical computers. So the only thing that we've done is broaden that threat space that we need to protect against. So the problem just got bigger. And it's a hard problem, and it takes time to do this well.
Yes, we have a question from Sir.
Hello. Thank you for that very informative lecture, Dr. Dodson. My question is about how would the interplay among the emerging technologies like advances in cryptography, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, or even blockchain. How will you assess how do you think the global technological landscape will play out? Like for example, considering the efforts also of major technological superpowers like U.S. and China. What can you say about the uh, outlook, the future outlook of the interplay between these emerging technologies? Thank you.
So the disruptive technologies that we're seeing today, when you think about quantum and you think about artificial intelligence, and I'm going to put, for me personally, cloud computing or hyperscale computing in that same box, as well as Internet of Things. have great opportunities for innovation, tremendous opportunities for all kinds of innovation. We need to bring these innovative technologies into not just into the marketplace, but into all aspects in our lives in a way that is secure and resilient, because they offer so many opportunities. We start relying on them very quickly, and we need them to be secure, and we need them to be resilient. And unfortunately, we can end up bringing these technologies to bear on problems and say, I'm going to get to that security and I'm going to get to that resilience tomorrow, but I'm going to get this out first. And I personally think that is a very big concern.
We have time for one more question from anyone in the audience. We have time for one more question from anyone in the audience. Does anyone have a question? Does anyone have a question? Does anyone have a question? Yes, we have a hand at the back there. I think there should be a mic nearby. Yes, we have a hand at the back there. I think there should be a mic nearby. Yes, we have
So
a
like
hand
the question is
at
like given that we are trying to develop encryption against quantum computers, like how can we test these computers without actually having quantum computers? Against quantum computers, like how can we test these
Can
computers without
can you
actually having
repeat the question, or could somebody repeat it? It broke in and out a little bit for me. I didn't catch the question.
So the question is, given that we have a threat of our encryption through quantum computers, how can we test uh, these algorithms without a quantum computer?
How can we do what with the algorithm?
How can we test that these algorithms actually are able
Hold
to
on. Yeah,
out
yeah,
a
yeah.
quantum computer?
Okay, right. So, so that's a very good question. How do we know that since we don't have a quantum computer, how can we be in, how can we be sure that these will hold up against quantum computers? And these are computationally secure algorithms that we've taken, that NIST and the cryptographic community have taken a look at. And they do have tremendous confidence in them. However, all mathematical cryptography um, is always, you always have to keep an eye on all kinds of mathematical based cryptography to ensure that it is as strong today as we thought it was at a particular point in time. NIST has put out three algorithms. Two of them are And they have a call out to put out some additional algorithms so they have some backup capability just in case, because these have not been studied for 20 years. But they still have tremendous confidence in them, as well as the cryptographic community. So nothing is definite. This is why I talked about creating a strategy that gives you cryptographic defense in depth and resiliency. And it's also a reason that a lot of people are talking at the high level about agility, and that's being able to move from one algorithm to another algorithm quickly. If something were to change in these, that you could move from one to another. I think that's important, but I also think it's important to have um, a defense in depth approach where you bring back perhaps some symmetric key management kinds of approaches, as well as public key infrastructure for your key management, that you have the ability to use multiple kinds of cryptographic algorithms within your infrastructure. And um, you also look at how quantum can be put into play to help support your cybersecurity goals. So that's that defense in depth that I was talking about. Um, we certainly have a lot of confidence in these algorithms, but nothing is absolute in this space. That's why NIST has multiple algorithms out. That's why agility is important. That's why defense in depth is important. That's why resiliency is important.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dodson, for your talk. Let's all give her a round of applause.
Before that, I want to thank you all for your time and attention. I know it's much harder when these talks are virtual, but I really personally appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with you. The presenter, the conference organizers have my email address, so if you have follow-up questions, please reach out and send me an email. I know I'm not there for the tea breaks and for the conversations, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have later on. And I just want to thank you all for including me in your conference, and hope the rest of it goes well. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you for that, Dr. Dodson. And we would like to present you with this virtual certificate of recognition. So if I may read,
Thank you.
certificate of
Thank
recognition
you.
to Dr. Donna Dodson for her professional and commendable service as a resource speaker in the Quantum Computing Hackathon 2024 during the Quantum Natural Language Processing QNLP 2024 program, given this 18th day of October 2024 at the University of the Philippines Tacloban College in Tacloban City, Philippines, signed by Mr. Jeffrey A. Amoro, Mr. Elmer C. Marano, and Mr. Bobby O. Corpus Jr. Once again, a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
To continue with our goodbye. Thank you once again, Dr. Donatas. To continue with our inspirational messages, let us now hear from the Office of the Lingte Governor, Honorable Carlos Jericho L. Fedilla, today represented by Leyte Provincial Board Member Ms. Raisa Villas.
Good morning. When you've been out of school for so long, every day is just flying by. To give context to what I'm saying, I was around and born already when we were still using typewriters. From then we shifted to computer and now we have quantum computers. So it's quite a fast pace. From floppy disk to CD drive to zip drive to USB drive and now to cloud. So it is indeed a fast pace, but like what Dr. Dodson said, we still have we have still a long way to go and there's still much to be done. So in this all fast paced life that we're living now, there's also great threat of misinformation and disinformation. Anyway, Governor Econ sends his regrets, having that this week is actually a week of planning celebration. So our schedule is actually packed. For some of my respects to um, Dean Patricia Arinto of the University of the Philippines College, to Attorney Melvin Parlo P. Oroa, OIC Regional Director of the IC, represented here, and also to everyone. Once again, good morning. Good morning. Morning also to Madam to information. Today we stand at the doorway of a new frontier in technology, one that holds the potential to revolutionize industries, solve complex global challenges, and transform the way we perceive work. It is truly inspiring to see this gathering of brilliant minds, all eager to explore the cutting-edge field of quantum computing. For many of you, this hackathon may serve as a starting point of a remarkable journey into a field that will define our future. Your participation in this event marks not just a step forward for you individually, but also the future of innovation, including us. Quantum computing is more than just a technological advancement. It is a leap into the unknown. It is now opening new possibilities for solving complex problems in ways that were once unimaginable. It represents the bold creative thinking that has driven human progress for centuries. It challenges our understanding of the fundamental laws of physics, providing opportunities to tackle problems classical computing could never solve. Through your curiosity, creativity, and collaboration, you are not only gaining knowledge in this advanced field, but also contributing to shaping a future driven by technological breakthroughs. In this space, every idea, every breakthrough, no matter how small, can ripple out and impact our world in ways we can scarcely imagine today. Together, you represent the power of unity and the beauty of collective intelligence. Let this hackathon be a platform where ideas flourish, friendships bloom, and knowledge is shared generously. Seize this opportunity to learn, grow, and inspire each other towards greatness. Remember, it is not just about the solutions you create, but the journey you embark on. Be fearless in your pursuit of knowledge, resilient in the face of challenges, and unwavering in your belief in your abilities. With determination and teamwork, there's no limit to what you can achieve. Embrace the challenges that lie ahead, for it is in overcoming obstacles that lead you to grow. Collaborate, learn from each other, and unleash your creativity to push the boundaries of what is possible in quantum computing. On behalf of Governor Carlos Jericho El Vitilla, best of luck to all the participants. May your minds be sharp, your codes be error-free, and your innovations be revolutionary. I encourage each one of you to approach this journey with curiosity, determination, and an open mind. As we delve into this hackathon, remember that innovation often comes from daring to think differently, from questioning what is accepted, and envisioning what is possible. May this hackathon be a transformative experience, igniting a spark in you to reach for the stars, no pun intended, and redefine what is possible. Dream big, work hard, and most importantly, enjoy every moment of this exhilarating adventure. You are the next generation of innovators, researchers, and visionaries. And the world eagerly awaits the solutions and ideas that will emerge from this hackathon. Stay curious, stay determined, and above all, believe in the power of your ideas to make a difference. Let the spirit of collaboration, creativity, and curiosity guide you towards success. Best wishes for an incredible hackathon experience full of discovery, collaboration, and innovation. Your contributions pave the way for a brighter, more innovative future, not only for our province of Leyte, for Region 8, but for the Philippines and the entire world. Mabuhay ka mga tanan, damong salamat, and maubay ka.
Thank you, board members. Okay. And thank you as well to Governor. Next, we are privileged to hear from Attorney Melvin Carlo Di Baroa, OIC Regional Director of GICT Region 8, today represented by Mr. Ray Noel Pagera, the OIC Chief Admin and Finance Division. Yes, that's all we hear.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to Ma'am Patricia Picarito, the Dean of the and to Ma'am Raisa, representative of the province of Leyte, and to my fellow innovators and pioneers of the digital age. As we gather here today on the point of a new technological dawn, I am filled with a sense of excitement and anticipation. We stand at the threshold of a quantum leap in human progress, a moment where the boundaries of what is possible are being redrawn. The hackathon we embark upon today is not merely a competition. It is a testament to our nation's unwavering spirit of innovation and our collective determination to shape a brighter future for the Philippines. This collaborative effort between DICT Region 8, UP Tacloban, DOST Advanced Science and Technology Institute, UP Interactive Society, Dev8 Community, and One Quantum Philippines is a testament to the power of synergy and the belief that together we can achieve extraordinary feats. Quantum computing, once a realm of theoretical physics, is now a tangible reality with the potential to revolutionize industries ranging from healthcare and finance to materials, science, and artificial intelligence. It promises to solve complex problems that have long eluded classical computers, unlocking new frontiers of knowledge and innovation. As Filipinos, we have a rich history of resilience and ingenuity, a legacy that has enabled us to overcome countless challenges and emerge stronger. Today, we have the opportunity to write a new chapter in our nation's story, one where we are at the forefront of technological advancement. This hackathon is more than just a competition. It is a platform for you to showcase your skills, your creativity, and your passion for innovation. It is a chance to apply the knowledge you have gained through the Quantum Natural Language Processing Lecture series to real world problems and develop groundbreaking solutions. Remember, every great invention started with a spark of inspiration. Let your imagination soar as you delve into the quantum realm. Explore the limitless possibilities, push the boundaries of what is known, and dare to dream big. The Philippines has the potential to become a global leader in quantum computing. By participating in this hackathon, you are not only contributing to your own personal growth, but also playing a vital role in shaping our nation's technological future. Let us embrace this challenge with enthusiasm and determination. Let us harness the power of quantum computing to improve the lives of people, to address pressing societal issues, and to build a more sustainable and prosperous nation. Together, we can ignite the quantum revolution and create a brighter tomorrow for the Philippines. Thank you very much, and good morning to each of you.
Thank you, Mr. Cuyara, and once again, thank you to Attorney Baroa for your wonderful message. Before we continue with our next set of speakers, I could see that we have some new faces in the audience here. So I would like to remind everyone once again to make sure that we've registered in the club. And if we could also show the QR code for the raffle again. So you could scan the QR code for our raffle we held later. You stand to win several prizes from our organizers and sponsors. So kindly just scan the QR code and register here to enter the raffle. And you have to be present, I believe, in order to claim the raffle prize. So we hope that you will be able to stick around later. Of course, not just for the raffle, also to hear from our very distinguished speakers. Now, to continue with our program, I would like to call once again Associate Professor Novelin M. Jesus to introduce our next speaker.
Good morning again, everyone. To introduce our resource speakers, so we have Mr. Elmer Beramo as a Senior Science Research Specialist at the Advanced Science and Technology Institute, or DOST-ASTI. Mr. Beramo brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in machine learning to the table, currently pursuing a PhD in computer science at De La Salle University. He also holds a master's degree in electrical engineering from the University of the Philippines. Over the years, Mr. Peramo has successfully managed a diverse range of AI-related projects, applying their expertise to domains such as weather forecasting, agriculture, natural language processing, construction project management, healthcare, and more. With a passion for driving innovation through the power of AI, Mr. Peramo is committed to advancing the field and sharing their insights with others. Our second speaker will be Mr. Jeffrey Aborde. He is currently serving as a software engineer and researcher at DOST ASTI's Computer Software Division. For several years, he led software engineering projects for partner institutions through contract research agreements with focus on information management systems and analytics systems. He is also part of the STASD's Artificial Intelligence Group and is involved with the Institute's current AI initiatives and collaborative research projects with the academe and other government agencies. He currently serves as the project leader of DOST ASTI's GUPI.AI project and its most recent initiative focusing on quantum computing and quantum circuit simulation in a high-performance computing environment. And as technical lead in the ASTI's Artificial Intelligence project, ASTI labeling machine under the ongoing SKPNAS program. And for our last speaker this morning, we have Mr. Brian Sigalwas. He is an independent quantum developer, author, and freelance journalist based in Metro Cebu, Philippines. He has written several books focused on quantum computing, including Dungeons and Qubits, An Adventure's Tale Beyond the Quantum Computing Tutorials, and Choose Your Own Quantum Adventure, a personalized career guide for the quantum computing industry. His works aim to make quantum concepts accessible and engaging for a broader audience. In addition to his writings, Mr. Sigalwox is a co-founder of One Quantum, an initiative dedicated to preparing the Philippines for advancement in quantum technology by educating students about quantum computing at early age. His background includes Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Rutgers universities and experience in various roles, including marketing director and English content writer. Mr. Siegel Walks is also active in the open source community with several projects on GitHub related to quantum algorithms and machine learning. His contribution to the field have been recognized through military honors, including an Army Commendation Medal for his service in Afghanistan. Ladies and gentlemen, they are our resource speakers for today's event. Thank you very much.
And to begin with our first of the three resource speakers for the rest of the event, for the rest of our morning session today, I would like to call on Mr. Elmer Peramo, the Senior Science Research Specialist of the UST. As a round of applause.
Thank you. Um, good everyone. Yeah, honored guest, Dr. Patricia Alinco, the Dean of Tacloban, and these other representatives of Governor Bevilla, Miss PDC, representative of DICT Region 8, representative of Dr. Attorney Baroa, Mr. Valera, Sir JP Lucio, and of course, Sir Bobby, and ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning. Yeah, siguro for most of you, especially yung mga students at the back, no, you may recognize me as your mentor in the mathematics of quantum computing. So I was one of the lecturers that lecture series. But for today, I'm gonna be sharing with you yung Itanong project, no? And other uh, projects of UST. By the way, I'm a Senior Science Research Specialist at Advanced Science and Technology Institute. On behalf of Dr. Franz, I would like to thank the platform organizers, Alan and Sir JP, no, for the warm welcome. This is my second time here in Tacloban City. And I really like the environment. Because I see that a lot of students here are very interested, no, dun sa emerging technologies, which in BOSD, we have from implementing these kinds of projects. So actually, I'm wearing two hats. So I'm also part of the Quantum Computing Society of the Philippines, aside from being one of the technical leads in the OSD ASCII. So what we conceptualize this event from several measures. So kasi my main thing is about NLP, and then si Bobby is more on quantum computing. So we merge it. So we call it QNLP, which is in itself, no, is a legitimate field, yung quantum natural language processing. So that's the application of quantum algorithms sa mga natural language processing tasks. No? So more on NLP talaga yung aking field. I'm currently pursuing a PhD in the one of the universities in Manila, no, in computer science, and my major is natural language processing. So that's me. Sige, next slide po. Sorry, I was given this trigger pala. Okay, yeah, more about ASTI, no? ASTI is, sige, I'm sure you already know what the, familiar naman kasi the OST, no? But most of the agencies under the OST that you know, I think, would be yung mga SME services natin like Pag-asa, PBOX, and of course, kung mga students kayo, I'm sure FEI kasi kayo yung nagpo-provide ng mga scholarships sa ating mga students. But ASCO is one of the research and development institutes of DOST. But let's say, more on ano talaga, ang focus namin is conducting research. So we have R&Ds, kunyari, let's say sa nuclear research, no? We have the Philippine Nuclear Institute. Meron din for food and nutrition. It's another agency. Meron din for, there's also one for industrial technology. There's one for metal industry. For us naman, ang main focus namin is ICT and emerging technologies. No? Electronics. So kapag mga computer science at saka mga electrical engineering, yon doon magpo-fall yung research natin. So usually we conduct research through the funding of like yun nga, yung government Appropriations Act, no, na binibigay sa o yung GAA. And also some of the funding comes from grants in aid. No? So yun yung ginagawa ng ASTI. And yung itanong na i-discuss ko later is one of the funded projects ng UST. Next slide po. Aside from the itanong, maraming pa po. Siguro I'm just gonna give a rundown of the different projects of DOST ASTI. We have projects under space technology. Alam niyo po kasi ang ASTI, very instrumental siya sa pag-develop or sa pag-establish ng Philippine Space Agency. Before, yung some of the initiatives na simula na ginagawa sa Philippine Space Agency ay nagsimula po ito sa ASTI. And then we have projects under wireless technology. We have ito yung Project 27 Education Information Infrastructure for New Normal. So ito na conceptual ito during the pandemic kasi iba yung mga teacher na magdala ng modules, lalo na sa mga far-flung areas. So one of the objectives of this project is to bridge the digital divide. So doon magpuputak sila na parang small network doon, tapos may mga dinevelop sila mga learning platforms, no, para mga tablets, na para magamit ng mga students, no. And then we have SAGA for signal assessment using geospatial analysis. Ulan, you understand like so may mga sa atin po meron kami mga dinedevelop ng mga sensors, mga weather sensors that we deploy all over the Philippines. No? And then we have, eto nga po, yung mamaya i-discuss ito ng one of the speakers, no, si Jeff, yung quantum circuit simulations, and also other emerging technologies like in blockchain, and mobile computing, and networking. Meron din po robotics, and smart cities. Tapos, of course, artificial intelligence. I will zero in on one of the projects, yung Itanong project. Next slide. Yeah. So, ito po yung usually na nakatopa sa aking research area, yung AI, no? Artificial intelligence. No? So, yung kanina na-discuss na, I think it was already shown nung, nabanggit kanina when Jeff was being introduced yung Alam project. No? Basically, yung AI po kasi, it's very expensive. No? Like, I'm sure you're already familiar with ChatGPT. Pero ang ChatGPT, anong pangalan ng company na nag-develop ng ChatGPT? OpenAI, di ba? So, yan, OpenAI is kumbaga ngayon, lumakas na sila because of their technology or because of the success of ChatGPT. But yung na-develop ng OpenAI is very hard for a developing country like the Philippines to develop technology like that. No? It's very expensive because AI costs a lot of computing resources, it involves a lot of math and engineering, human resources, of course, and then, of course, time. No? So, in short, developing AI models is very expensive. So, what we do is, next slide. Okay, so we wanted to democratize, we wanted to leverage on the economies of scale. We wanted to pull yung mga different resources. Like for example, the UST or the government has already funded a lot of projects. And we wanted to pull them, no? Like, para makapag-develop kami ng mga AI models. Okay, and so the objective is to democratize AI development. Ibig sabihin ng democratize AI development, kahit yung mga small players na hindi natin kayang tapatan yung mga big players like Google, pwede na makagamit ng AI. How? So, we are conducting our research. So like for example, we hire yung mga graduates, for example, ng mga SUCs, like mga graduates ng computer science na interested sa AI. So we capacitate them on emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. And then, uh, aside from that, yun nga yung sinasabi ko mga projects before ng DOST na meron nakabili na ng mga high-performance computers, no? We wanted to strengthen our SMB infrastructure, no? Sa ASTI po kasi meron kami mga high-performance computers doon. Okay, meron din kami projects sa development Preginet wherein it creates different networks po, no? So this is the approach or this is the strategy that we're doing in ASTI in order for us to develop AI or democratize AI models. So we leverage yung economies of scale. Hindi namin kaya itong ASTI na mag-isa. That is why we're doing this kind of activity. We partner with deep academic and governments and industries, other LGUs, no? We ask them, like for example, when we do IPCs, we go to different places, no? Iba't ibang ano, like for example, say Tacloban, we ask them, ano ba yung mga pain points ninyo? Perhaps AI can provide solutions to your day-to-day processes. So that's probably how we do, we leverage on AI for national development. Next slide. This is one of the projects that I've been telling you, yung ALAM project. ALAM stands for Automated Labeling Machine or ASCII-ALAM. No? Ibig sabihin nito, Automated Labeling Machine. We use supervised machine learning and computer vision and remote sense data to develop AI models or deep learning models for use case applications. Like for example, in natural disaster change detection, no? The idea here in this use case is parang meron kang automatically madedetect ng AI yung pagbabago sa isang landscape, no? Kapag ka may dumaan disaster. Kasi yung mga LGU, before they can declare, for example, state of calamity, no? They have to show some proof. Okay? So may mga dinedevelop kaming AI, no? Dito para ma-detect ka agad na mayroong malaking changes sa isang landscape. Okay? So that's one application. Meron din intelligent traffic monitoring. No? May mga models kami ganyan, like for, kunyari sa MMDA, collaborate with MMDA. Na automatic na, mabibilang na kagad ng AI yung dumadaan sa sakyan. Okay? So maraming applications yan. Land use, land cover mapping. Okay? Ito, madedetect na using mga satellite images. Sa ASTI po kasi marami din kami mga satellite images. Meron din mga ground receiving stations doon. Yung mga satellites that we have developed. No? So ito, makikita nyo dito, like, madedetect na agad, map nyo, masesegment niya whether that particular piece or segment of land is like industrial, residential, cultural, or whatever. So magagamit sa urban planning. Okay? Crop monitoring, we also have models, no, for crop monitoring like sugarcane and rice fields or corn, building irrigation, and we also use technologies of AI technologies for predictive reconstruction. So, pwede mo siya magamit like, for example, sa mga museums, no? Instead na, kunyari wala nang yung bagay yun or medyo nag-degrade na yun, we can reconstruct it. So yan yung some of the use case applications na ginagawa namin under AI. And yung mga models na yun, they can be reused. So we are developing this virtual hub, itong repository na to para mga models stored online, called the timer, and doon naka-upload so that some of your applications can reuse them, yung mga models na na-develop. Next slide. Okay, ito na yung itanong project. No? This is one of the projects that I am handling. So ito yung interface niya. Basically, simple lang, this is just the parang login account. Pero ang itsura niya is parang Google lang siya. This is just like ChatGPT. But mind you, even before ChatGPT, even before 2021, nag-start na itong project na ito. Meron na kami dine-develop na parang ChatGPT. We just, kumbaga ang idea is, sino ba may jacket? Hindi siya yung jacket. Ano nakalagay dyan? Sabi dito sa jacket, natin ko. Ano? Natural language interface to databases for Filipinos. That's the idea. So marami kasi tayong mga databases, mga different organizations. Next slide. Yeah. So ito no, a natural language interface no, to databases for Filipinos. So nag-start lang siya as natural language interface to databases for Filipinos. Pero ngayon, marami na kaming idadagdag na functionality sa ito. No? Okay? Meron na yung retrieval augmented generations. I-discuss ko rin. Siguro papahapiwan ko rin. Next. Yan. Ano ba si Itano? AI-powered system that allows users to access and generate insights from organizational databases. Okay, kung may mga database kayo dito, okay, paano ba tayo nag-access sa database? Usually ganito. Ganito yung pag-access natin sa database. Magde-develop kayo ng system. Sino mga IT dito? IT. Wala. Comsci. Oh. Pero ang marunong kayo mag-develop ng system, di ba? Okay? Yung back-end nyo, yung database nyo yung tinatawag na back-end. So, nade-develop ko na kayo ng front-end. Tapos, pero yung front-end kasi nade-develop yung very rigid. Ibig sabihin, paano nyo siya na-design, yun na yun. Okay? So, ang difference ng itanong, eto, wala na mga buttons. You just have to type your questions in natural language. You can interface your magtatanong lang ng konti. Wala nang i-click na button to retrieve this report or print this report. Ganun, di ba? Pag ganun. Pero ito, what we do is, parang Google lang siya na merong text box. Okay? Type kayo ng questions in English, Tagalog, Taglish, or even Bisaya or Waray. And then, kunyari tatanong nyo, ilan lahat ng empleyado ng UP Tacloban? Okay? So, lalabas na yung sagot doon. Basta yung sagot doon ay nandun sa database. So, ano difference nito sa Google? Anong difference nito sa ChatGPT? Sa Google, it's, pag nag-search kayo sa Google, ang kaya nyo lang i-access, yung mga publicly available web pages na nakalink. Okay? Publicly available. Pero hindi masasagot ni Google yung mga internal business intelligence ng isang organization na nandun sa database. Pero ito, i-connect nyo lang sa database ninyo, and then you can provide natural language interface to databases. Next slide. So si ChatGPT, hindi rin kasi masasagot ni ChatGPT yung tanong na gano'n, di ba? Dahil na-train yun sa mga publicly available facts, no? At saka sometimes nag-halusin pa siya. Okay. Most business data is relational. Okay? Many applications built on relational databases, no? Ano ba yung mga example ng relational databases? Alam niyo? Ah? Yeah. I heard something. SQL or MySQL, that's one. Oracle, Postgres, those are relational databases. It allows non-technical end users to query information relevant to their functions in an organization. So kahit sino, kahit clerk or kahit yung CEO, kahit yung accountant, no? Basta magtatanong lang siya ng questions na kahit na mali pa yung spelling ng questions, you know? So that's the idea. No? Hindi na kailangan pa ng programmer. Usually kasi, para makapag-interface kayo sa isang database, you need to learn the language of the database. And that language is called SQL or structured query language. Ito, pwede kahit sino kahit non-techy users. Basta marunong magsalita ng Tagalog or ng English, mag-type sa computer. Make searching for answers easier by using language they're comfortable with. Okay, next slide. Okay, paano ba? So basically ito, may natural language questions ka na, tapos meron lang tayong interface dito. Pero ngayon kasi, since nauso na ng ChatGPT, we use yung power ni ChatGPT to enhance yung pagsagot niya doon sa mga question. But the answer will still come from the databases. Okay? Ito ginagamit lang namin sa pag-generate ng mga sagot. Okay? Pero yung data talaga will come from the database. Ang tawag dito is text to SQL translation. It's like, parang this is the, parang machine translation na yun sa Google Translate. Sa Google Translate, from French to English. English, Tagalog, English to Cebuano, gano'n. Ito naman, English to SQL or Tagalog to SQL. So, from natural language to programming language, yung technology. Next slide. Yan. So, yung methodology ang ginawa namin, gumamit kami ng, sino familiar dito sa supervised machine learning? Narinig niyo na ba yun? So, yun yung ginagamit na, yun yung popular methods to train model, AI models. Ibig sabihin, nagko-collect ka ng ma-label data. Like for example, may picture ka ng apples, lalagyan mo ng apple. May picture ka ng orange, lalagyan mo ng orange. And then, papakita mo sa bata. Malalaman niya na yun. So, ganun din. Kaya set mo sa bata, sa machine. So, may mga label. Ganun din. So, basically, ganun din ang tinitrain yung Google Translate. Sa sample ka ng mga sentences in English, may corresponding label na translated in Tagalog. So, dito naman, ganun. Meron kang, let's say, ito, question in Tagalog, question in English, tapos meron siyang translated sa SQL. And then we have a lot of those pairs of questions. Yun ang gagamitin namin para training data doon sa AI models. And then, yung AI models, we call that yung itanong, no? Itanong system can now query databases. Next slide. Ayan. So, yun yung initial iterations namin. That was, sinimulan namin before. Kaya lang may mga bagong technologies na yun. And we wanted to expand yung features ng Itanong project. Ano ba yung mga challenges? Large amount of organization data still exists as flat files. Nakita namin na hindi lahat ng organization ay data ready. Meaning, some of them wala pa silang relational databases. Some of them, a lot of them, Excel ang ginagamit. Diba? Yung kalat-kalat na Excel file, wala talagang database. Yung some of them, hindi pa naka-PDF files yung mga documents. Mga ganun. Okay? So, yun. Multiple modes of communication, linguistic diversity, ability, mobilities of access and exclusivity. These are some of the existing issues that we took into consideration para i-iterate yung new version ng Italo. Okay, now to address that, next slide. Nagkaroon ng Italo. Ano ba yung mga features ng Italo? Tubo yung objective natin. Gusto namin na it can also, aside from databases, it can now access PDF files, Word documents, and text files. Paano yun? So, halimbawa, meron kayong mga documents na gusto niyo tanungin. No? Instead na mag-search kayo doon or something, upload nyo lang sa isang repository, sa isang folder. And then let itanong query din. Magtatayo kayo doon, tapos ang sagot, makikita nyo doon sa mga PDF files. So that is now possible. Possible na yun ngayon. Na kunyari, may mga research papers kayo, instead na basahin nyo lahat yun, pero may specific information na kayong kailangan. Then you just have to upload all of those PDF files and then type your questions and then makikita niya sa i-replace niya yung question sa inyo, no? Na base doon sa available na information on from those documents. Another enhancement is it can now support audio and speech inputs. So, aside from parang typing with just text, pwede na rin parang using a mic. Sabihin nyo lang dun sa ilan lahat ang empleyado ng UP Tacloban. So, instead na itatype mo, so yan yung isa pang enhancement na gagawin natin. Next. Sorry. Can you go back to the previous slide? Gusto na rin namin lang sa laptop. So yung pwedeng parang di ba sa ChatGPT meron na rin mobile app sa chat, parang ganun din siya. So itanong, we would try to develop a mobile version. And then, lastly, to expand itanong yung visit diversity. So hindi lang Tagalog, hindi lang English, hindi lang Taglish, i-consider na rin namin yung Bisaya, yung Tagalog, Ligaynon, Maray, no? So kung meron kayo dito, if you can point us to kung sino yung we can collaborate with so that we can incorporate yung local language nyo dito sa Tacloban, dun sa next slide. Okay, so ito yung methodology. Usually, we are collecting a lot of text data. Tapos ito, i-process namin yun. And then we're going to use those. Ang tawag pala doon sa text data na ginagamit for training, we call that corpus. No? Corpus, body corpus. Okay. Corpus or plural is corpora. Tapos we train the model, itanong components, etc. And then magde-develop kami ng application. So kung meron kayong mga databases and you're interested here in Tacloban, you can coordinate with us so that we can also implement itanong here dito sa UV Tacloban. Next slide. Expected output, yung mga models, aside from the models, yung corpora, mobile application, integrated systems, and then the past kasi we have published already several papers. I think more than 4 papers na yung na-publish natin sa Itanong. Next slide. Yeah, target beneficiaries, government, local SMEs, academic. Next slide. So, ano ba yung mga pwede paggamitan? So, practically, every organization na may business intelligence na may mga data store, whether relational databases or kahit mga documents, can benefit from So, any organization, like, for example, in tourism, Itanong can assist travel agencies and tourism boards in providing information about destination, flight availability, hotel reservations, travel itineraries, no? Pwede natin i-deploy yung itanong doon sa kunyari tourism offices or yung kahit sa mga resort, no? Financial services, o sa mga banks, no? Magkano pa ang balance ko? Tatype ko lang doon. Instead na may kiklik ang button pwede mo i-type na lang. Or sa school, kailan ang midterm? Pwede yung mga tanong doon. So, pag in-upload na doon ng registrar yung academic calendar, for example, masasagot yun. Okay, yung mga questions like, magkano pa ang balance ko sa... Okay. Makakapag-exam ba ako? Parang gano'n. Yung mga tipong gano'n or ilan, ano yung grade ko last sem dito sa subject na to? Yung mga questions na gano'n. Healthcare can assist healthcare professional, athletic patient records, medical histories, no? So, next slide. Yan, law enforcement agencies can use the know for criminal database queries, no, case management, and crime analysis. Sa retail, no, kunyari sa Lazada, tatanong ko, kailan darating yung order ko? No, natipong ganun, no? And, ayun, so practically every, organization na merong business intelligence can benefit from it. I think a couple of slides na lang before I end. After for the next okay, next slide po. Next slide. Ayan, real estate. So yun, sige, check natin to kung mape-play yung demo. May demo po. So ito yung pa to, version 1 pa ng tanong. So hindi na ito yung lumang slides kasi ito pero sige. Copy-play ko. So once you have already logged in, ganyan lang siya kasimple, parang Google, na may ganyan. Type ka lang dyan, or may mga predefined questions naman. No? Ayan, ganyan yung sagot, nalabas. Or kapag ka ang tanong ay merong data, pwede siya i-graph. Meron din functionality na pwede siya i-graph. So parang Google lang talaga, kaya lang nakakonect to doon sa database ninyo or sa mga documents sa i-graph. Yan, may mga graph din. Medyo lang, ayan, Sorry. Yan, may mga draft din. There you go. Ayan. Okay. Next slide. Siyempre, ano kailangan natin dito? Like yung sinasabi kanina ni Dr. Danson, unahin nyo dapat dito yung security. Okay? Kasi ano to eh, mga sensitive data to eh. Kami pag dineploy namin ito, wala kaming access dun sa data ninyo. What we're trying to provide is just the interface. Pero yung security ng data nyo, yung privacy ng data nyo sa inyo. Okay. Next slide. Yeah, I think that's the end of my presentation. And if you're interested, you may contact us through this channel, through this handles. No? Thank you for listening. If you have questions, no, now is the time to ask them. Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you have questions, no, now is the time to
Thank you very much, thank you very much, Mr. Caramo. And as he mentioned, if you have any questions, we are now open for a short Q&A session from anyone. Yes, we have a few hands here. Um,
So I think the question is really for my love of web development and how web systems work. I think since you mentioned that it is applicable for government agencies, and I think government agencies actually handle like large data, or large data, millions of rows. So how would Ethanol scale? Because I myself, I find SQL slow sometimes. So since what Ethanol does is convert natural language into SQL, how does it scale for large data, especially for the government?
Good question. Yeah, we have started to think of the different deployment strategies. And yung scaling ng mga different data infrastructure, no, kino-consider namin yun. The thing is, we are, like what I've shown earlier, no, we are using yung technology ng OpenAI. No? Pero hindi dun magtatapos. We are also exploring other open source models. Kasi may bayad kasi yun sa OpenAI. Di ba? So yung may mga open source alternative naman. The idea is, ganito no, so kung may mga simple na mga databases, yun, madali lang yun. So meron kasi kami ginawang research na kumbaga naka-tier yung tipo ng translation na ginagawa namin. Like for example, if your database is so convoluted na maraming tables, tapos maraming mga joins, no? So iba ang tier yun. So may mga benchmarks din kami ginawa doon. Medyo mababa nga lang yung accuracy kapag so tama naman yung ano mo, strategy nyo. Kapag lumalaki at sa pagiging convoluted na yung mga yung data, yung complexity ng databases na medyo mabagal siya at medyo inaccurate din. So that is something that we would like to work on. I'm sure there will be parang more technologies no, na really available to solve that kind of scalability problem. Just like, gano'n naman yung evolution ng technology. In the past kasi, okay lang tayo sa SQL. Yung the way we ano. Kaya lang kasi because of big data, no, using big data, we resorted to other means of other algorithms. Like yung tinatawag na notion no, SQL, no, yung ibang mga ways na dapat ngayon hindi na kasi ang iba yung structure o iba yung principle ng structured query language dun sa NoSQL. Sa structured query language talagang it uses mathematics under the hood to actually organize yung data para mas efficient yung storage and management nun. Pero kapag big data naman, mga kailangan mabilisan tapos madami. Imagine before, pag nag-aayos ako ng folder ko, hierarchical pa yan. Ngayon, lagay mo na lang sa sobrang bilis at sobrang dami na kailangan. Lagay mo na lang yan sa lagay mo na lang sa desktop and then you just use the search functionality. Kahit hindi na maayos yung pagkakaano mo, just have to type in search. But the good thing about this, yung search functionality natin ngayon is very powerful na kahit hindi siya perfectly string matching, kahit synonym lang, okay, makikita niya na, lalabas na siya sa search. So I'm sure yan, yung scalability problem, that's a good thing that you bring up. But the thing is, maraming mga bagong technology ngayon na to actually that can be used to minimize, no, or to solve that challenge. So yun. Thank you.
Yes, we have another question.
I just have one more. I just have a since a company or an organization gives you access to their database, right? For Itanong. I'm just curious about how Itanong, for the accessibility of Itanong project Itanong to like that certain database, because we know that data in those certain databases can be quite private, such as maybe employee turnover rates, maybe some shares, maybe some of their financial records. So I'm just curious on if Itanong is like or access these private information, or is the database curated first by the sender and then just given to Itanong?
We have several deployment strategies. So what we do is we normally communicate or discuss that with the MIS. Usually, may mga MIS yan. Sila yung nakakaalam ng organization ng mga databases nila. So we wanted to be as flexible as possible kasi nga, since what we're just trying to provide are yung front end lang talaga sa financial language interface. But the best way to go around this is through APIs siguro, no? Like i-call mo lang API pero wala kami access talaga doon sa database. You can still maintain whatever type of data governance you're implementing within your organization. Hindi namin gagawin yan. But the thing is, you can make use of, like for example, may front end ka, and then magbabato lang siya ng API calls doon sa itanong system. And then, yung API calls na yun, like, babalik siya as a response, yung sagot na nun sa model, no? Parang ganun. So, pwede siya gawin through API calls na lang. Ganun. Para at least, less intrusive, no? Less intrusive dun sa ano. Mahirap kasi, ano yan, dahil yung mga several deployment strategies namin, pwede kasi siya as, if you want, as rigid as possible, or if you want as, kumbaga, decoupled as possible yung approach natin doon sa what we're trying to do, kaya yun yung tinitingnan din namin ngayon. Ano ba talaga yung current or most dominant data infrastructure or data structures within our organization, no? So, yung sabi ko nga kanina, yung privacy and security, doon pa rin yung i-guard pa rin yung owner ng data, no? What we're just providing is the natural language interface. So, yun. So, very flexible naman. So, pakikipag-usap kami dun sa MIS ng mga organizations.
Thanks for the question. I think we have one more question to go.
Good morning. Medyo nag-worry lang ako dun sa healthcare part. Kasi actually, the provincial government is slowly shifting EMRs. Yeah, electronic medical records. Much like what we did with our vaccination during COVID, the community pass. So we actually had to our system to speed up our vaccination. However, like I said, medyo hindi pa nasa-catch up yung kasi like, yung yung safeguard, like you said, maybe to the MIS, safeguard everything. But on even on part, what are the security safeguards that you're going to let's face it, mas kahit pa gano'ng advanced sa security na ilagay mo, merong iba na mas advanced sa pwede mo kasama. And these are really sensitive information, especially in healthcare. And sad to say, our data privacy law isn't yet very specific as far as health information is concerned. It's part of the penalty, but there's no specific as what constitutes protected health information. I brought this up with Data Privacy Commission, and well, nakadalawang taon na, they're still going to go over it. And another thing, in connection with your scaling up, we have a problem with IPPCs and DOH because it always breaks down. So which hampers our hospitals' ability to be able to send claims in a timely basis because that should shut down. or hindi niya kaya talaga yung data na sinesend sa kanila. I think even the interface that it has now, masyado siyang legit na if you're going to bill, it has to be one diagnosis. So pwede naman siya na all diagnosis for one person. Instead of being billed per diagnosis, pwede naman siya be per patient. So, ang dami po po talaga. So, like, on this part, especially banking, yun yung medyo mataas as far as data privacy is concerned. Banking, health information. Kasi it needs, that's why I would like to ask, how are we going to put safeguards from our end sa employees namin and from the end of the even of na at least do while in fact we already have to factor authentication in our profile. So what if magkaroon din ng similar like that na meron safeguards and sa part namin as far as we're the one holding the data. But at the same time, on the even part, siya, walang circumvention of the security ng mga pertinent information.
Thank you po for that questioning from and valid concerns po. No? I guess we can address that uh, along two perspective. One is yung policy perspective, another one is yung technological perspective. No? Pero dapat they should go hand in hand. So tama po na marami kasi nga because the technology is very dynamic, yung mga na-put up natin mga policies may become more obsolete na later on, no? And then in mga legacy systems, baka hindi rin mag-catch up, no? So dapat talaga, yung approach dito is more on parang holistic scale na and on a more long term, no? Like, marami tayong mga systems in silos na hindi, like, it's hard to parang integrate with other systems. Like for example, ngayon, cleaning system, DOH, na medyo matagal na rin, na medyo legacy system na rin po, no? So, doon kayo magpe-play out uh, yung sinasabi kanina ni Dr. Danson na dapat yung security yung hindi siya afterthought lang. Dapat from the get-go, naisip na yun, no? Bago pa binild yung system, no? So, the thing is, itanong ko kasi, parang ano lang siya, develop kami ng technology that can facilitate efficiency in terms of information retrieval because the user can now, ngayon yung implementation niya for each of the system, depende pa rin po yun. Kumbaga, hindi namin consider yung security and yung privacy issue. What we just consider is yung technological efficiency. So yung security and privacy issue still binibigay namin yung pagsagot doon pa rin sa mga experts on that. Parang gano'n. Ganun po yung idea. No? So, kumbaga parang this is just another layer of parang like parang sa front end, parang interface ng alam po talaga siya. No? That's the basic idea. So, when it comes to yung security po kasi, several layers din yan. No? Several layers din yan. Meron sa application layer, meron mismo dun sa cryptographic layer, no? So maraming mga levels ng security. And it really depends on kung paano gagamitin yung application. Like in the case of ito, no, yung ginagawa ko kasi namin, yung access is depende, like for example, tanong ka, yung sagot na iaano sa'yo, depende sa level of access mo. Kung wala mo talagang access dun sa data, hindi niya sagutin. Kahit alam niya yung sagot, hindi niya ibibigay sa'yo. Parang gano'n. So, depende may mga levels of access po. So, so far, hanggang doon lang po yung dinevelop namin Pero sabi ko nga po, yung security and privacy concern nandun pa rin sa yung owner pa rin po ng data or ng database.
Thank you for that wonderful round of questions. If anyone else has additional questions, just feel free to approach Mr. Garamo after the sessions. And with this, we would like to present the certificate of appreciation to Mr. Elmer Garamo. And with this, we would like to present the certificate of recognition, rather, awarded to Elmer C. Garamo for his commendable service as a resource leader during the Quantum Natural Language Processing Program given today at the University of the Philippines, Tacloban. And awarding the certificate is Mr. Bobby O. Corpus Jr., the President of One Quantum Team. Round of applause. Is Mr. Bobby O. Corpus Jr., the President of One Quantum Team. Round of applause. Is Mr. Bobby O. Corpus Jr., the President of One Quantum Team. So once again, thank you very much, Sir Elmer, for your presentation. And
Maraming salamat
once
po.
again, thank you very much, Sir Elmer, for your and to continue with our next speaker,
Maraming salamat po.
may I introduce Mr. Brian Siegelhans, independent quantum algorithm designer and QC analyst. Will be independent quantum algorithm designer. I think he will be presenting remotely. Will be
Hello, Sir Brian.
I think he will be presenting remotely.
Good morning. Hello, Sir Brian. Good morning. Hello, Sir Brian. So I couldn't hear. Am I getting started?
Once
Sir.
again,
So I couldn't hear. Am I getting started? Go ahead, sir. All right. Let me share my screen. Go ahead, sir. All right. Let me share my screen. Go ahead, sir. All right. Let me share my screen. Go ahead, sir. One moment. One moment. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
And let's see.
Yes, sir.
And let's see.
Yes, sir.
And can you see that? And can you see that?
Yes, sir. Go
Yes.
ahead.
So start the presentation.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So start.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Let me get my timer ready. One moment. I feel horribly unprepared. This should have been done already. All right. Let me get my timer ready. One moment. All right, so assuming you all can hear me, I want to start with an apology that I'm not there in person. Since I am in the Philippines, unfortunately, it was just really bad timing right now to be traveling around. So hopefully, if there's a next time, I can be in person for that one. So early digital computers used vacuum tubes, and then we discovered transistors, and the vacuum tubes largely disappeared, and the transistors we've been using ever since. Today, we're still trying to figure out how to build quantum computers. So we're and we don't know yet which ones are going to go the way of the vacuum tube and disappear, and we don't know which technologies are going to go the way of the transistor and be used for the foreseeable future. So I'm going to provide a brief overview of the most common technologies, but the Philippines has expressed an interest in neutral atom technology in particular, and might even build a neutral atom quantum computer. So I'm going to be focusing the remainder of the presentation on that. So the center of the screen here, there should be, hopefully you can see what looks like a ball of lights. That is a three-dimensional array of neutral atoms, and you can see that the scale is in microns or millionths of a meter. And this image is actually a few years old. We don't really see three dimensions anymore. But back a few years ago, we were demonstrating that we could trap the atoms and arrange them into different configurations. But these days, we really only see two dimensions, and that's for two reasons. Number one, it's easier. And number two, we can supposedly do everything we want to do in only two dimensions. So there's no need to add the complexity of three dimensions. Above that, there's a line of lights, and that is a linear chain of ions. So there are some similarities because we're still talking about atoms, but there are some differences based on whether you use neutral atoms with no charge or ions that have a charge. Then to the right of the atoms is a depiction of a photonic integrated circuit. So unless you're watching through YouTube right now and you're sitting in the dark, you are being bathed with electromagnetic radiation from the lights above you. And if we could zoom in closely enough, we would see that there are individual, discrete little packets of radiation called photons. And these photons, they have no mass, no charge, and they don't like to interact with anything, but we can still use them for computation. Then in the bottom left, that the thing that looks kind of like an electronic circuit is an electronic circuit. And toward the middle of it, there are five little squares. And those are kind of little circuits within the circuit. And normally, if you've worked with electronics at all, we use resistance to control the levels of current and voltage in a circuit. But if we use superconducting materials and we cool the circuit down to near absolute zero, the circuit loses its resistance and the electrons are free to go zip, zip, zipping around, and we create the behavior of atoms. And you might hear the term artificial atoms. We are not creating atoms, but we are creating the behavior of atoms, and we can use these qubits, they're called, for computation. To the right of that, what looks like a plastic case has a white square in the middle. That is synthetic diamond. And diamond is a carbon lattice. And as we build this carbon lattice, we can, in different places, we can leave two carbon atoms out. And in their place, we can put a nitrogen atom and we can leave the other space vacant. That's called a nitrogen vacancy center. And we can put quantum information in a bunch of different places, including the nuclear spin of the nitrogen. So if you imagine for a moment or think for a moment about how small an atom is and how much smaller its nucleus is, it's incredible that we can use the nuclear spin for computation. Or in the vacancy, we can put an electron and we can use the electron spin, or we can put multiple electrons in the vacancy, or we can use the nuclear spins of the carbon atoms around it. Different ways of using it for computation and error correction. But the reason for the diamond structure is that it provides a natural shield to the environment. Quantum information is very sensitive. It's very prone to errors. So looking back for a moment at the superconducting circuit, you normally find that in layers of shielding that's to protect it from the environment. In this case, the diamond provides that natural shielding and helps protect the quantum information so we can have more accurate computation. To the right of that is a quantum dot, and you can see the scale is 1 micron, 1 millionth of a meter. And we can't visualize an electron, but we can trap an electron in the middle of that, and we can use the electron spin for computation. Another model is having two quantum dots, and if the electron is in this quantum dot, we'll call that 0. If the electron is in the other quantum dot, we'll call that a 1. And all of these modalities, in fact, have different configurations. They're not just one type, this is the way it's being done, but each of these have different ways that they're being done, including probably more ways than just two for the quantum dots, probably more ways than three for the nitrogen vacancy centers, and so forth. Then in the bottom right corner is a depiction of a topological qubit, which is still theoretical, but well, four topological qubits. So the qubits are in two dimensions of space, and then the arrow represents a dimension of time. That the qubits are moving in two dimensions of space through a third dimension of time. And imagine that you're playing checkers or chess, and as you move the pieces remember how you move them on the board. In this case, though, moving the qubits around represents the computation that we're doing to them. And you're not the one remembering the movements. The pieces themselves are remembering the movements. So if qubits can remember the operations that are performed, these are proposed to be very resilient against errors. So we're talking about the diamond providing shielding and the superconducting circuits having layers of shielding, and the topological qubit, which is again only theoretical, would be naturally robust against errors and possibly not need that. So what do neutral atom quantum computers look like? On the left-hand side is a Pascal's device, a company called Pascal, and the device is called Fresnel, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I apologize if anyone is affiliated with Pascal here. But where you see green light, that's the optical bench and the optical components, and that is the actual quantum computer. Then on either side, there is space for classical control electronics. On the right-hand side, even though it looks like it says qua, that would normally say quera, but the door is slid open so you can see the optical bench and optical components and wires on the inside. And then also to the right of it, you have the racks of classical control electronics. And this device right here, it's named Aquila, is the largest publicly available quantum computer at the moment, with 256 atoms that can be used as qubits. So if we take a closer look, this is Quera's Aquila again. This is the one that was on the right-hand side. If we look to the middle of the image and a little bit down and to the right, it looks like a cube with copper wiring around it. And inside that is a vacuum cell. And in this case, with rubidium gas, it doesn't have to be rubidium. It can be other species of atoms. There's a company called Inflection that's working with two species of atoms in the same cell. But then around this cell, we've got the lasers that trap the ions and trap the atoms in place and move the atoms around and perform the computation. And then we also have the equipment that images the atoms. Then this, hopefully you can see this video that's about to play. This is Quera's Aquila again. They created a Lego version of the quantum computer, so this isn't completely accurate, of course, as a Lego version, but can kind of give you a little kind of sort of peek inside. And you can see a little bit of space below the optical bench, and there's space above the optical bench. In principle, these control electronics could be under the bench or over the bench to save on floor space. Nobody seems to be terribly worried about that at the moment. But in the future, as we scale these things up and we become concerned with how much space they use in a data center, it's important to know that these things can, in principle, become a little more compact. Then how do they work? So this is three versions of the same thing. It's a maximum independent set problem. So imagine we want to place cell phone towers. We want to provide maximum coverage of the area, but we don't want overlap. The overlap is bad. So the five dots represent the locations we can place the cell phone towers. And the way atoms work is they start off at size. I'm going to speak specifically about rubidium atoms because I'm more familiar with them. They start off at size angstrom, which is really, really small. And there's an electron in the fifth orbital. And we zap them full of energy. And the electron goes to the 70th orbital, 70. And that swells the atom in size from size angstrom to size micron. It's about 1,000-fold increase in size. So what happens is if the atoms are far enough apart, both of them can be energized, and it's called the Rydberg state when we swell them up like that. And they can both be in the Rydberg state, but as we move them closer together, with Quera's Aquila, the default is usually 4 microns, 4 millionths of a meter. At that range, what happens is if you try to put two atoms into the Rydberg state, there's a phenomenon called the Rydberg blockade where the two atoms would overlap. And even though they're almost entirely empty space, they still cannot occupy the same space. So one atom in the Rydberg state, and it would be determined by quantum mechanics. We have no idea of knowing which one, but one will be in the Rydberg state, and it'll block the phenomenon of the Rydberg blockade will block the other atom, and that atom will stay size angstrom. So what we see with these small graphs is that the atoms that are not connected by lines will not block each other. So the top two atoms, they're far enough away to not block each other. The atom in the middle has four lines, so if that's in the Rydberg state, it'll block all the other four. And the bottom two are close enough to block each other, but not to block the top two. So for the maximum independent set problem, which the neutral atom quantum computer solves naturally, the two possible solutions, the maximum independent set is 3, and the two solutions would be the top two plus either one of the bottom two. It doesn't really matter which one, and this would be our cell phone tower placement. And then the applications of this, would be on the right-hand side. That is the island of Manhattan in New York City. So the dots represent possible coffee shop locations. We've opened up a chain of coffee shops, and again, we want to provide maximum coverage of our coffee shops, and we don't want them to overlap each other. So the coffee shops that are connected by lines overlap, and the ones that are not connected by lines do not overlap. And then we can run this on a neutral atom quantum computer, and it'll show us the maximum number of stores that we can place without the overlap. Now, realistically, this would actually be a weighted maximum independence set problem because of population densities that we don't necessarily want to rely just on the spacing of the coffee shops. So it would require some adjustments to take into account waiting for, at lower Manhattan, we actually wouldn't mind a few coffee shops a little closer together. Then in the bottom left, that is a VLSI circuit, an electronic circuit. So when designing an electronic circuit and placing the components, there's a maximum independent set problem that applies to that. So the moral of the story being that the maximum independent set problem has real world applications. And we can arrange the atoms into logic gates. This would be the AND gate. The one in the middle is the result of actually running it on Quera's Aquila. So it actually ran on a real device. And on the right side is the proposal for it from a paper. So we have X1 and X2 as the inputs, and Y1 is the output. So if both inputs are in the Rydberg state, they're both on, then the output will also be in the Rydberg state. It'll also be on. And then we can see in the middle when we run that on real hardware, we see that's true, that you'll always get this result that the two inputs are on and the output will be on, implementing AND logic. And if we can implement AND logic, that means we can implement NAND logic, which is very important. And this is not really how you would implement it, but if we now have the input at the top still, and we extend the bottom right input with another atom, then we have 2 on, and the output is off. So instead of AND logic, we have NAND logic. The way you would really want to do this is you'd want to place the extra atom by the output, and then that would negate the AND logic. And if we wrote out the truth table for it, the atom by the output would be an actual NAND gate, and this configuration here would not really work properly. But since we don't have other atoms around it, we don't actually have anything going on. Uh, the atom by the output, it just wouldn't look right for demonstration purposes, but that's what the way you would actually do it. And the importance of that is with a NAND gate, so it's AND logic, and then you negate it afterwards, so it's the opposite. With a NAND gate, you can create any electronic circuit, anything whatsoever. So because we can do that classically, if we can implement a NAND gate with atoms, in principle, we can create any electronic circuit out of atoms. Now, whether or not we would actually want to do that is a different story, but in principle, we could by using this configuration over and over again. So this goes back to Pascal, which was the quantum computer on the left. And this has been updated since, but I'm still using the same image anyway. And this is a simulator that is online and free. And in the top left corner, you can see it's the same problem as before. The same 5 atoms where the top 2 are far enough apart to not block each other. The one in the middle blocks all of them, and the bottom 2 block each other, but not the top 2. To the right of that is the histogram with a bunch of light blue lines. And the 2 longer lines, if we could zoom in on that, would show the correct solutions that we can have the top 2 plus either one of the bottom ones. Excuse me. Then to the right of that is the code. It shows the code even though it's a no-code platform. You don't have to know coding at all to use this thing, but for some reason it shows you the code anyway. Then below that, this is analog quantum computing. This is showing you the pulse, the shape of the pulse, the duration of the pulse that is applied to the atoms in order to perform the computation. And off to the right-hand side is where we configure that pulse. So again, without code, just setting the attributes of the pulse. And because it's a simulator, it can only simulate a relatively small number of atoms, but again, it's free. Then you're probably more familiar because of this hackathon series with the digital model, which is quantum circuits and quantum gates. And when you design a quantum circuit, you're using high-level gates. So it's not really an operation you're doing a quantum computer. It's a relatively easy way for you to represent possibly a large number of operations. So the first step after you design your circuit is called transpilation. Excuse me again. And transpilation breaks the gates that you used into the gates that can actually be implemented on the quantum computer. And that tends to be fairly small in number. So when you look at a transpiled quantum circuit, you'll see that it's much, much deeper than what you submitted. There are far more gates and usually using different qubits as well. It involves qubit selection depending on what you're using, and a much deeper, messier circuit. And then after it's transpiled into the operations we can actually execute, the next step after that is compilation, which creates a pulse schedule, which is what we're looking at here. And this would be from a very, very simple quantum circuit. I don't honestly remember what I submitted. It might have been a simple hello quantum world with superposition and entanglement, and that's it. Um, but after compilation, what we have is a schedule of pulses that get applied to the hardware. The atoms themselves, or whatever the qubits are, they have no idea what a quantum circuit is. They have no idea what any of these gates are. What they react to is pulses of lasers or microwaves, depending on the modality. So we have different shapes of pulses, we have different durations of pulses, and we have delays between the pulses. And this is all designed to have the most efficient, most accurate computation, and we're trying to minimize errors. But what you also see, excuse me again, is that the pulses have a very neat shape. So this is a software called Boulder Opal, which does work on Quera's Aquila device. And what we see on the bottom is another example of these neat pulses, but quantum isn't neat like that. So the image on the top shows the software reshaping the pulse to better fit the hardware, again with the goal of more efficient and more accurate computation and less errors during the computation. Then hopefully you can see this. This is a few years old, and this is an early attempt at arranging atoms. So there are 100 atoms in a 10 by 10 two-dimensional array, and trying to, on the right-hand side, trying to actually get them into that configuration. And it works better these days. Quera's Aquila, the approach it takes is you've got the cloud of rubidium gas, you trap the atoms, and then it images the atoms to see if it meets the configuration that we want. And then if it doesn't, it has lasers that pull atoms from a reservoir and moves them into place, and then it images again to make sure, because we can't have accurate computation if our starting point is incorrect. So you image and then you use lasers to fill in the the gaps where the atoms fell out until you have the correct starting point. Then hopefully you can see this. This is a quantum error correction taking place, and you can see hopefully the atoms shuttling around. So during computation, there are different protocols for ensuring for detecting that errors have taken place and correcting for it. And every now and then you might see a flash on the screen that looks like a red oval. That has been added to indicate where quantum entanglement is taking place. And the incredible thing about this, it's the only quantum computation that you can watch. And this was greatly slowed down. This takes place in a fraction of a second, but it's imaged and it's slowed down that we can watch it. So in principle, we could do that with ions. They move around. But photons you can't see, so you can't image them. Superconducting qubits don't move around, so you can't see anything. And plus, they're heavily shielded. The nitrogen vacancy center qubits don't move around. The quantum dots use electrons, which we can't image, and the topological qubits are still theoretical. So in principle, you can actually watch your computation, not in real time because it's too fast, but you can still watch it. And this shows the console, again, of Quera's Aquila, where on the left-hand side, we have a whole bunch of atoms. In the middle, we have used lasers to position the atoms, and we perform some kind of computation. On the right-hand side is the result of whatever that computation was. The neutral atom technology has applications beyond computation, which includes Bose-Einstein condensate generators. There used to be one online, but unfortunately it was just recently taken offline. But there's a bunch of scientific and commercial applications that applies to that go beyond computation. But one of the interesting ones is atomtronics. So you take the word electronics and you take the word atom, and what you're doing is you're creating electronics at an atomic scale. And there is a Bose-Einstein condensate generator on the International Space Station. So experiments are also being done in zero gravity, and a whole bunch of other applications that include commercial applications that you can actually monetize the research that comes off of this. And in the bottom right is just a humorous aside to me anyway, that I've written several articles about this technology. So hopefully you can see that Microsoft Copilot thinks I created it. I have never claimed to have created it. I did not create it, but I shared this with the company that did make it, the company Inflection. And I don't know if they thought it was funny, but I think it's hilarious. So I'm going to be sharing this until the end of time. Then this is a gravimeter, which is a type of sensor, but also a type of quantum sensor. And neutral atoms are not limited to gravimeters. There are other types of quantum sensors you can make with them also. But towards the middle of this image, there's a kind of a red fuzzy ball. And I'm going to grossly oversimplify this, but we take a cloud of atoms and we drop it. And what happens is we can measure gravity with far more precision than a regular gravimeter. And with that precise detection of changes in gravity, maybe we are detecting underground natural resources. There are applications where we have sensors, and these quantum sensors add more precision to the measurement and helps us detect whatever it is we're trying to detect, in this case, gravity. Then finally, this is the first job that I submitted to a neutral atom quantum computer to Query's Aquil again. And you can see on the side Rydberg density in different colors of blue. And it was supposed to be something about phases of matter, but I don't really remember anymore. But I was thinking at the time, in order to use a neutral atom quantum computer, I need to be able to figure out how to position the atoms. Otherwise, I'm not going to get very far. So I decided to arrange the atoms in the shape of a heart. And then this is the results that came off of the actual quantum computer. And then I joked on social media that I love neutral atoms and neutral atoms love me too. I don't know if anybody else thought it was funny, but again, I entertained myself and I thought it was hilarious. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions anyone might have. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Just one question. Ayun, as we are, just one question. So, yes, we have a question from the side of us. Oh, great.
I would just like for I would just like to ask for clarification purposes. Um, what is the difference between a qubit and a classical qubit? Oh, a classical bit rather. And how does quantum entanglement affect the behavior of these qubits in computation?
Okay, it's normally oversimplified. Quantum computing is usually explained that a classical bit can be 0 or 1. What they actually are, transistors work like switches. So they respond to voltage. A certain voltage makes a transistor act like an open switch. Current does not flow through it. We call that off, and we assign that as 0. A different voltage makes the transistor act like a closed switch. Current does flow through it, and we call that on, and we assign a 1 to it. And that's all it can do. But a qubit, often called 0 and 1 at the same time, is not wrong, but it's better visualized as a sphere in 3 dimensions, or like a globe. So we have the Earth, and the North Pole is our 0 in quantum, and the 1 is the South Pole. And when we measure qubits, that's all we can get out of it, zeros or ones. But during computation, we are not now at the North Pole or the South Pole. We're in the Philippines. This works better if we're in the same location, but I'll use your location. You have a latitude and a longitude right now. That location information is more than just 0 or 1, and we can store information in that latitude and longitude. It's a location, it's a specific place. So in this case, a qubit has two pieces of information, and it's complex numbers. So a complex number has a real part and an imaginary part, and we represent the quantum state with two of these. So it's much more than zero or one because we can encode information into two complex numbers. Then the big difference, oh, that's a pretty big difference, but another big difference is if we have one transistor, we have one bit of information. If we add a second one, we have two. We add another one, we have three. We have 10, we have 10. If we have 100, we have 100. It grows linearly. But with qubits, when they become entangled, it grows exponentially. So we take two qubits and entangle them, and now we represent that state with four complex numbers. Again, not zeros and ones, but complex numbers, which we can encode more information into. Then if we add a third qubit, it doubles to 8. We add a fourth qubit, it doubles to 16. So by the time we have 10 qubits, we don't have, so 10 transistors would be 10 bits. 10 qubits would have more than 1,000 of these amplitudes, these complex numbers that we can encode information into. And each 10 qubits we entangle adds or multiplies it by 1,000. So by the time we get to 20 qubits, we have a million amplitudes. By 30 qubits, we have more than a billion amplitudes. And by 40 qubits, we have more than a trillion amplitudes. So more than a trillion pieces of information that can be encoded onto 40 qubits versus the classical bit, which just gives us 40 zeros and ones, which you can't do as much with. So I hope that answers your question. I hope that answers your question.
More questions as well to uh, continue with our program to the next speaker. But before that, we would like to award the virtual certificate of recognition to Mr. Ryan C. for his professional and dependable service as a resource speaker today in today's quantum natural language processing program. Given today at the University of the Philippines, Tacloban College, signed by Mr. Jeffrey Agora, Mr. Elmer Baramo, and Mr. Bobby O. Corpus Jr. Once again, a round of applause for our speaker, Mr. Ryan C.
Thank you very much. Enjoy lunch.
Very much. Here today, may I call on the stage Mr. Jeffrey A. Abora, Chief Science, uh, Lead of the QCS project and a supervising science research specialist at the UST. Ask me around the applause.
Uh, good morning po. Good morning sa ating lahat. I think gonna be computer science, right? And applied math. So I think quantum computing will be a lot easier for you since you have the foundation knowledge to understand at least basic or basic concepts. No? And sino po ba dito yung currently ay kasama doon sa ongoing efforts? Dito. And sino yung mag-join sa hackathon? Yeah. So I think, so we're nearing na yung start ng hackathon. No? I hope you're excited. Based sa experience namin sa it's an exciting event, no? Kasi mabilis solve yung mga teams, no, yung mga problems. Um, but right now ba, may from other schools tayo here or lahat from UP? How is that? Lahat from UP ba? meron na. Sige. So that's okay. So let's proceed. So my presentation will uh, be more of an introduction on what we are doing in ASCII with regards to quantum computing, and it will be more of an invitation to partner with us. No? Baka may gusto kayong gawin on quantum computing, mga research projects. Okay. Okay, so I think nag-go through naman ni Albert kanina what ASCII is. So we are one of the siguro less popular agencies of the USP. So we have these popular agencies like Pagata and Pigo. So sila yung sa front end natin. So because kapag may bagyo or may pagtutok ng bulkan, no, sila yung nasa balita. But on the back end, ASI is there to support the computational needs of these agencies and also to support the computational needs of our partner universities and organizations. And we are more focused on doing R&D on microelectronics and IC. We used to have R&D projects on space technology, but since nag-spin-off na yung unit na yun into Philippine Space Agency, so limited na yung ASIC to doing the receiving of the satellite data. But most of the functionalities that we were doing before ay nasa Philippine Space Agency. Okay, so pinanganak ni ASIC yung PhilSat. Next slide, please. Okay, so as mentioned din by Albert kanina, we are currently hosting DOS is High Performance Facility Museum for COARE, Computing and Archiving Research Environment. So this is the facility that provides computational resources to our partners. So we have partners in the academe that does simulation on weather, on uh, genomic studies, simulations of physics, and of course yung ginagawa rin namin is circuit simulation. So we do that in core. Not particularly sure if ano na yung capacity ng core, but tuloy-tuloy yung pag-increase ng core count niya and memory to accommodate yung increasing need ng mga partners for computational resources. So if you have projects that require computational resources and what you have is just a laptop, you can apply for an account support so you can run your computing tasks support. No? So instead of let's say training your model on your laptop, you can train it support. So iwanan mo lang siya dyan. Yung resultant would be yung model na. No? Pwede nyo embed sa software. So that's core. And just to give you context no, on the quantum technology development roadmap in Philippines, this is the current roadmap for quantum technology developed by the issued, which is the Council of UST for Energy and Emerging Technologies, R&D. So this came out from a focus group discussion that Fisher hosted, I think last 2022. And we see that it is quite, I would say, siguro ambitious. No? I think all roadmaps are. And so this requires revamping. Siguro 2025, it's a good year to revisit the roadmap, no? And see kung alin ba dito yung mga think of, alin ba yung kailangan i-adjust, no? Para mas maging realistic. But some of these have been addressed already. And so this will be the eventual open problems for all the proposals by the UST. with regards to quantum technology development. So makita natin by 2025, establishment of a design, fabrication, and characterization facility for materials. Something related dito naman ay nangyari sa 2025 na nakasalang lang sa ngayon sa evaluation, but may project that we address this target in 2025. So I hope na maging part din kayo eventually ng quantum technology roadmap ng Philippines beyond, hindi naman necessarily sa timeline na ano, but even beyond this roadmap. No? Uh, so the Philippines is really in its infancy stage in terms of quantum technology development, both in hardware and software and in theory, theoretical understanding of this. Next slide. So as a as part of the ongoing project that ASCII has with regards to quantum computing, DOSC ASCII established its internal quantum innovation lab or QIL, and it is tasked with the exploration of potential applications of quantum computing to difficult computing problems in the different domains, in the development of solutions to these problems utilizing quantum computing resources, or simulating them in small problem instances. And so we are actively seeking for partners in exploring the emerging field of quantum computing, its applications, and harnessing the advantages in use. So itong quantum innovation lab, ito yung interface niya actually para sa mga ganitong initiative. So yung QIL siya yung interface niya actually with One Platform Philippines, and also with the partners niya actually na interested na tingnan yung quantum computing as a viable option for computing their computational tasks, no, sa specific sa domains nila. So that is the quantum innovation. So ang focus ng ongoing project is quantum circuit simulation. Uh, ano nga ba yung quantum circuit simulation? No? Uh, so we know in computer science, no, sa application software engineering, we we have our classical code. And so we use CPU to execute this classical code. No? For example, we have a web application, we use CPU sa backend to deliver yung mga requested resources, web resources. Ano pa ba? For example, we're using word application, no? We're using our CPU to execute yung word application as well. But there are some application software that addresses compute intensive tasks. So for example, uh, if you're a bioinformatician, you're doing some sequence analysis. So compute intensive yung task na yun. And so you might resort to using parallel algorithms for dividing your computing task. Kung hindi interdependent mga computing task mo, then you can resort to parallelizing your task and use your CPU to orchestrate the distribution of these tasks to a most likely a GPU, graphics processing unit. Since ginagamit na yung GPU for some years na in uh, doing computing tasks other than addressing yung graphics display ng computer. So I think sa mga nag-games dito, you're familiar with GPUs and which GPUs are good for gaming. Para mas smooth yung gameplay. But ginagamit sa science community, ginagamit yung GPUs for computing, no computing not the graphics but computing yung mga individual tasks, computing tasks na marami. Since yung GPU, no, marami siyang compute cores, it can do computation on uh, uh, slices of tasks no, ng sabay-sabay and then i-aggregate na lang yung result. So, ganun yung, uh, computing paradigm is using accelerators such as GPUs. So, and then, pumapasok itong quantum computing as an option for a co-processor like GPU. Kasi di ba sa GPU, it can lessen the time that you need in computing yung mga difficult computing tasks. Kasi pinaparallelize natin dun sa thousands of computers in GPU. But see, sa quantum computing, no, it utilizes a different kind of parallelism. No? Wala siya nung parang kagaya thousand or compute cores ng GPU, but it uses some physical effects, quantum physical effects for encoding yung mga computing tasks. And then it can compute on this computing task in in a different kind of parallelism. No? So dito, makikita natin na although may quantum algorithm ka and then you write your algorithm into a quantum circuit, yung makikipag-usap pa rin sa quantum processing unit mo with bigger central processing unit. No? Hindi siya parang pag sinabi natin, I have a quantum computer, you're using directly yung quantum computer, but yung actually yung mode of using it would be as a co-processor. Kaya currently, di ba, yung mga quantum processing units, naka-host sila sa cloud, like yung IBMs, yung sa AWS, yung sa Azure, naka-host sila sa cloud kasi you're using quantum processing as a service. No? Yeah, quantum processing as a service. And so, hindi tayo bumili ng quantum processing unit at nilalagay natin sa sarili natin. No? So, buti na lang, mayroong cloud computing. Kasi nandun tayo currently sa era kung saan unang panahon, no, yung computers, malalaki sila, they take space like a room, no, para lang makapatakbo ng isang computer. And so people that who would like to use the computer needs to be physically present to sa room and then enter the instruction using a punch card. And then yung machine mag-output din no result niya on site. But now we have cloud computing, so we can access yung machine remotely. No? We don't need to be in, let's say, in IBM's headquarters to submit our quantum computing task. No? We can access it through the cloud. Okay. So, saan papasok yung circuit simulation? Okay, next slide please. Oops. Okay. Oops. Okay. Yeah. So, um, since prototypical pa yung mga current QPUs, and access to QPUs is expensive, and yung mga available na QPUs na uh, online ay very limited lang, I think yung last ko na gumamit ng QPU online, 5 qubits lang yung ino-offer ni IBM, not sure if gumamit ngayon. And for higher number of qubits, you need to submit a proposal. No? And then evaluate nila yun if worthy ba yun na patakbuhin sa QPU nila. No? Kasi gusto nila yung parang talagang game-changing problem yung tatakbuhin sa QPU nila. Okay? And so, um, we can resort to simulating execution of circuits using CPUs and GPUs. And usually, gumagamit tayo ng high-performance computing facility. No? Kasi mas maraming CPU or GPU or yung DCPC compared to our. And so, yun yung motivation no? Kung bakit mayroon pa tayong need for circuit simulation. Okay. Next slide, please. So these are some of the motivations for doing circuit simulation. So first, current hardware limitations in actual quantum computers require other means of validating, verifying the correctness of quantum algorithms that should make effective error correction of physical bits. No? Since limited pa nga yung mga current GPUs, then need natin na ma-validate yung mga algorithms na design natin. Even in small scale lang, no? Small instances. Second, developing algorithms involve an iterative process of designing and testing. And so testing iteratively an actual quantum computer can be costly. So imagine if you're designing a quantum algorithm for a problem, and syempre you want to test expect tests. Of course, aside from analyzing it in paper, no, you would also want to do some empirical analysis of your algorithm. Then you need to do iterative testing, no, sa different instances ng problem. Yan ang costly nga kasi yung mag-access. Okay. And third would be quantum circuit simulation allows for understanding some aspects of quantum computation such as errors and interferences and their effects to computations. Kasi nga, simulate mo lang naman, then you can introduce errors and interferences explicitly. So you can see ano ba yung effect mo sa output ng algorithm kapag may ganong error or interference. So, approaches to circuit simulation, I think nag-go through na yata itong mga notations na to sa lecture series. So, I assume yung mga nag-join the lecture series, familiar na sa notation. But for those who are not joining the series, lecture series, so these are just some notations now for representing yung states ng variables, binary variables natin. No? So, ganun pa rin naman, we're using binary logic for computation. Same with classical. Naiba lang yung notation. Naiba lang yung notation niya. No? So we have the bracket notation. And here we have the vector and matrix notation nasa right side. Okay, so equivalent lang sila, magkaiba lang notation. So yung state 0, we encode as the vector na may ones and zeros. And then yung 0 naman, yung kabaligtaran. So yung quantum gates naman, no, it can be represented as a matrix na may ganyang entries or ganyang entries na matrix. And itong quantum gates, ito yung ina-apply natin doon sa ating binary variable para ma-translate into different state. So if you use x state to a zero state, then sa classical, no, that's like applying in AND operations sa zero state. And that will result to a 1 state. So ito yung notation niya using state vector approach. Next slide. Oops. So, and ito naman yung circuit notation, no? If you want to, we have an algorithm, kanong algorithm, we usually expressible at our algorithm into a circuit, no? Kasi currently, nasa ganun stage pa yung, yung quantum programming. Pwede ka magsulat, no? Pwede ka magsulat ng quantum program, na ano lang, parang regular Python code lang. But usually, ini-express siya as a circuit. Ganito yung, ganito yung pag-express ng isang ng operations sa states. So we're specifying the gates we want to apply to the states. And yung nasa right or left pala is yung resulting state. Ganun din. Ang classical lang na circuit, no? Inaaral natin sa computer science. Next slide, please. So yung quantum computation is basically, it is very, very fundamental is ganito lang. No? You're just applying operations to states. And then transform na yung state to another state. Okay? So ganito naman yun sa matrix vector notation. We have a matrix, then we have a vector, and then it is transformed to another vector. Meron lang tayong medyo mas complicated na gate, yung H na gate or Hadamard gate. So when we apply to a zero state, medyo weird yung pinakalabas niya. We see na hindi siya zero, hindi rin siya 1, but it's a combination of 0 and 1. Technically, it's a linear superposition of the states 0 and 1. Then meron silang nakakabit na probabilities. Probabilities kasi pag check ko kung ano yung value ng state ko, I could get a 0 or A1, 50% 0, 50% 1. No? So, parang toss ng coin. So, if you try to observe yung state 100 times, most likely siguro mga around 500 times, 50 times, lalabas na yung zero, 50 times. So, ito lang yung medyo weird na effect, no? Wala na ito sa classical. Okay? So, hindi natin siya magtalabas sa classical. Okay? And then sa matrix vector notation niya is A. So, next slide please. So, yeah. Yung kanina, di ba, magkahiwalay yung operation ng gates, but dito magkasunod na siya. And so, magkakaroon ng ibang effect doon sa output ng circuit. So, kanina, instead of naging 1 lang yung 0, this time, naging ano na siya, linear superposition na siya ng 0. And then we did nothing to the second qubit. So, ito pala, qubit siya, no? The first qubit, second qubit. And so, ganun yung reading. And then yung computation goes from right to left. So, sige, next slide please. So, we see na dahil naka-matrix vector, ano yan, matrix vector notation, next slide please. We see na pwede natin ma-break down no, yung task into a series of multiplication and addition. So parang ganito siya. And so, itong mga parts, itong mga chunks na to, pwede natin i-allocate sa different compute cores, let's say GPU. Okay? So that, compute yung itong computation na to in parallel. No? Next slide please. Yeah, so ito, pwede siyang compute in parallel kasi sila interdependent. No? And then, i-aggregate mo na lang yung sum nila sa final result. Next slide please. Next slide. Yeah, so pwede natin iba to. Let's say sa isang core processor para gawin in parallel yung computation nito. Okay? So, yung state vector approach to, or matrix vector approach to circuit simulation, very doable siya using a GPU. Kaya lang, ang problem is that, imagine, ito, 1 qubit lang naman ginagawaan natin. Ang size ng matrix natin is now 2 by 2. And habang dumadami yung qubits natin, nag-increase exponentially yung size of dimension. So let's say, ano siya so ito, dahil 1 qubit, so that's 2 to the 1 by 2 to the 1, kaya 2 by 2, no? So let's say kung 10 qubits yan, so that would be 2 to the 10 by 2 to the 10 na size ng matrix. Tapos yung vector natin will be 2 to the 10 by 1. No? Ganun nakalaki yung vector and matrix natin. And so, it will eat up a lot of memory. Hindi siya kakasya doon sa RAM ng computer natin. So, kahit meron tayo naka-ready na GPU para tumanggap ng task to parallelize, nahihirapan tayo doon sa pag-keep sa memory noong ating matrix and vector encoding nung gate and quantum state. No? So that's a downside ng paggamit ng matrix vector approach to circuit simulation. Next slide, please. So sa quantum circuit simulation project, we are looking into complementary approaches to simulating circuits. No? So si John, no, yung kasama natin sa lab, he's looking into decision diagram-based approach to representing circuits, quantum circuits. So graphical approach to represent circuits, and nare-reduce kasi nito yung redundancies sa matrix. And so, napapaliit mo yung matrix representation. And so, mas maliit yung kailangan mo na memory to represent the circuit. But this approach is good if there are a lot of redundancies in your matrix, no? That represents your gate. Kaya lang hindi siya effective kapag walang redundancy doon sa matrix. So dito makita natin, may redundancy sa pattern, pareho diagonal, may redundancy sa values ng elements, parehong followers per the group, pero dito negative na. So, mataas yung redundancy that corresponds to a quantum gate. And so, this can be reduced yung representation niya such that maliit na lang yung footprint ng matrix mo. No? And so also, nung vector, vector represent decision diagram representation of vector. Okay? And so may mga redundancies dito sa vector. Vector encoding ng state natin. Yung mga elements pare-pareho. So na-reduce yung size ng ating structure. So nakakatipid tayo sa vector. Na-address natin yung problem ng matrix vector approach to circuits. And then si Rossman, so nandiyan si Ross, is working on ano naman, tensor network-based approaches to simulating patterns. So dito naman, we're presenting pattern circuits as tensor networks, and then graph yung network um, as a means of doing the computation until we arrive at the final result. So these approaches, again, are